Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello, welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can keep this and any other conversation I ignite going over on my Twitter at Movies TV Mad, my Vero at Big Mouth 1, and the extension to this channel, kind of, is my Instagram, Big Mouth. So if Warner Brothers and Variety were trying to put us off from keep on hashtagging release the Snyder Cut, if they were trying to burst our bubble, if they were trying to burst Zack Snyder's bubble, they made a very, very big calculated mistake. A massive mistake. 50,000 tweets, trending, still trending. This is a backfire bigger than that old banger you have in the garage. Now, on today's DCEU Extra, and by the way, welcome to the DCEU Extra. A bit excited from all this drama that's going on, and I still believe in release the Snyder Cut, and I still believe we can persuade the studio, if they've not decided to release it, to release it. So welcome. I'm going to read out two articles right now, and one's from Screen Rant. Justice League Snyder Cut images reveal how Aquaman got his costume. Talk of Zack Snyder's original version of Justice League continued to set the internet and social media ablaze, with Snyder releasing a collection of new images of Aquaman, Mera, and Nudis, of Aquaman, Mera, and Nudis, or Voco on Vero, played by William Dafoe in Snyder's version of the movie. Voco was among the many characters removed completely from Justice League, while Amber Heard appears briefly as Mera. Audiences would later become intimately familiar with both characters via their major supporting roles in last year's Aquaman. With Snyder having departed Justice League due to a family tragedy, the significant reshoots the film was subject to took it far off course from Snyder's intentions. In recent days, the grassroots campaign for the release of the Snyder Cut of Justice League has been massively energised, with a major increase in mainstream attention. Furthermore, a growing list of cast and crew members, including Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck, have added their voices to the now deafening chorus. The latest images released by Snyder show Arthur meeting Voco inside of an air bubble, with the latter giving the future King of Atlantis the trident he will use in the coming battle against Steppenwolf. Additionally, another image released by Snyder shows Voco side by side with Mera in front of a group of Atlantean soldiers. An element of the former would ultimately make it into the theatrical cut. Sans Voco with Arthur meeting with Mera inside of an air bubble following a fight with Steppenwolf in an Atlantean outpost. Snyder had previously made a somewhat oblique tease of Voco's appearance in his version of Justice League, following comments on the movie's original ending made by Jason Momoa during Aquaman press tour. Momoa has been an especially vocal advocate of the Snyder Cut's release, revealed that Arthur's ending directly set up Aquaman with a scene of Voco and Mera requesting his aid in an impending Atlantean conflict, with Arthur declining by saying, "I'm going home to see my dad." Snyder in turn released an image from the scene on social media, captioned with the line of dialogue. Although Mera and Voco's appearances in the Snyder Cut are still likely to be comparatively minor with these latest images from the movie, it is now clear that each had at least a somewhat larger role in Snyder's version of Justice League than had previously been suspected. These newest stills also demonstrate that Snyder sought to lay the foundation for Voco's mentor relationship with Arthur seen in Aquaman, along with Arthur's burgeoning romance with Mera. Additionally, Snyder confirmed to a follower on Vero that Voco also gives Arthur the Atlantean battle armor he dons in the movie, which is something we didn't know, by the way. The Snyder Cut has jumped to a whole new level of mainstream interest and demand for its release within the past month, with the topic rising to such heights that even Marvel stars have begun posting release the Snyder Cut. So, this is why it's becoming very embarrassing for Warner Brothers and company, isn't it? On social media, at present, Warner Brothers has not made any public comment on the renewed attention for the Snyder Cut, and insiders are claiming it's a pipe dream. They're alluding to the Variety article, of course. At the moment, nevertheless, there seems to be a rising public interest in Zack Snyder's version of Justice League. Great article, who wrote that? This is by Brad Curran again. Very, very well done. So this is what I mean. This Variety article incited Zach to react. No way would Zach post 5 or 6 images in one evening, in one day, because it was in the morning over in America. But he reacted. He reacted ferociously. It's a good ferocious. And what those pictures actually show, that this is completed. This film is ready as well. So he really blew the Variety article up. We're all just making jokes about Variety. The Variety article has become a big joke. And I've said it on Twitter and I'll say it again, and I'm not sure if I said it on this morning's DCEU Daily. But if they only just did the article about WB's future DC plans, there wouldn't have been a problem. They would indeed have been trending instead of release the Snyder Cut. But they made a boo-boo. And these people continue to expose themselves. How they even shouldn't be working for a studio. It's amazing to me, it really is, that you would make such a big error in judgment. I mean, maybe it's not the studio, maybe it's just Variety, but it was crazy. Here's this article, boasting about the future plans, which even got me excited, right? And then at the bottom, they start talking about the Snyder Cut being a pipe dream. You're talking about trends of 30 to 80,000 on average, right? And you have just taken that amount of people and kind of triggered them, but in a good way, because what we did, we started hashtagging release the Snyder Cut and having a good old laugh at old Variety. So they've become a joke, and our movement has gained more and more momentum. I'm sorry, Warner Brothers, this is a big own goal. Time for another article. So yes, Mark Hughes has done an article for Forbes about the Snyder Cut. Now, Mark Hughes is a man who blocked me just after Justice League was released in 2017 because he was saying a lot of things that triggered me at the time I was defending the film, because I was in the same frame of mind of defending MOS or BVS. So I was just defending the indefensible, and that's why Mark blocked me. But luckily, somebody shared this Forbes article he did, so let's give it a read. Dear Warner Brothers, release the Snyder Cut. He says more than that, by the way. Where are we? I'll get my words out. After a sustained campaign to convince Warner Bros. To release Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, support for the movement is reaching new heights. Last week, a parade of high-profile filmmakers and performers called on the studio to release the Snyder Cut. While the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut generated hundreds of thousands of tweets and retweets, with new leadership taking over at Warner as AT&T shores up plans for company, with the streaming service HBO Max debuting next May, and with a version of Justice League just sitting on a shelf unseen by the public, the time has come for Warner Bros. To release the Snyder Cut. First, let's be clear about a few things. Yes, the Snyder Cut does exist in a near-finished form. Yes, several people have seen the Snyder Cut. Yes, there were multiple edits of the film, including an early assembly cut, but Snyder and his crew continued working on the film and created a more completed version. And yes, some of the fans who want to see the Snyder Cut have engaged in bad behaviour, but that's a separate issue, unrelated to whether the Snyder Cut exists and where it should be released. And nobody should oppose the release of Snyder's vision simply based on disliking how some of the fans behave. Good point. It's also worth noting that there was indeed a sustained campaign to convince everyone that no Snyder Cut exists, with some people intentionally spreading false information to mislead the press and public, while others spread the false information because they were misled by their bosses or sources and had no other evidence at the time to convince them otherwise. Maybe he's talking about himself. I'm not sure what compels some media and journalists to continue denying the Snyder Cut exists, after a great deal of confirmation, nor why some of them insist it would require tens of millions of dollars to complete Snyder's version. It wouldn't, and those claims seem based on the outlet's journalists falsely believing only the assembly cut exists. While Warner could indeed spend some additional money to finish a few elements or tweak a few others, Snyder's version could be released as is without additional spending, and viewers would get the full film with 90% completed footage, VFX and sound. Claiming the Snyder Cut doesn't exist or that it's a mythical entity whose existence is unlikely or in serious question relies on ignoring the claims of most people who worked on Justice League and who enlist that, yes, it does exist. It also relies on ignoring the folks who actually saw the cut of the film. And it relies on ignoring all of the footage and images that have steadily leaked out to the public over the past several months. Saying it doesn't exist or treating its existence as a matter of debate then inherently implies a vast conspiracy exists to fool everyone into thinking a movie exists for the purpose of what it is, the supposed motive for so many people to make false claims and to generate images and footage for a supposedly non-existent film. And the problem is, of course, these images are being posted by Zack, and Zack's not going to be putting false images up, is he? If your options are to believe either a big conspiracy exists to make you think a movie exists when it doesn't, or that a studio had hid a film from sight after replacing a director amid a broad stumbling by studio leadership, which of those options makes more sense? Your personal opinion about the film, the filmmakers, the fans, or the studios are irrelevant here. This is about the truth and logic and about whether people are willing to admit reality. Because the reality is the Snyder Cut exists. And here's a further reality for you to wrap your head around. Eventually, inevitably, it will be released. The only question is when and where. I say all of this as someone who initially didn't think a true near-complete Snyder Cut existed. Since in the early days of this situation, I believed the sources who told me only an assembly cut existed and that Snyder didn't continue production in the time leading up to his departure from the project. At that time, there was almost no leaked information or images to suggest more completed longer cut existed, other than the assembly cut, and almost nobody who worked on the film was speaking publicly to say a Snyder Cut existed. Most of the movement for releasing the Snyder Cut was rooted in faith and assumptions which at the time were in contradiction to evidence being provided behind the scenes to those of us in the press. But who was giving you that evidence? But even then, my own skepticism about the existence of the Snyder Cut was framed within the context of my belief that a longer cut did exist, but it was only about 75–80% completed. I thought a lot more VFX and sound editing were needed, and that no reshoots or pickups ever got shot before Snyder's departure. My objection was to fans who said there was a 90+%, or was commonly claimed on social media by some of the louder and more aggressive fans at the time. 99% finished Snyder Cut, which I believe, based on evidence I'd seen and lack of physical evidence in the contrary at the time, was untrue. I have obviously seen and heard more over the past year, including new images and footages, sources with more information about what happened, a more accurate timeline of events during Justice League's production, and revelations that some folks at the studio were misled about the true nature of the Snyder Cut. Some people who originally told me it didn't exist later contacted me to let me know they had merely repeated what they were told at the time, but they had since learned the Snyder Cut exists. As a result, my understanding of the situation and my position have changed, which I began saying publicly a few months ago. So I readily admit I was wrong when I said a real Snyder Cut didn't exist in a finished or close to finished form. More importantly, I'm happy to have been wrong, since it means there is a real Snyder Cut out there for us to see, and I believe everyone will definitely see it someday. It's just a matter of time. Let me just add a little note to those who pretend my support for the Snyder Cut makes me a Johnny-come-lately, or who pretend I was unsupportive of Snyder's vision and work. I've been a vocal supporter of Zack Snyder's films for years, as long as in fact that many current fans were just little kids when I was writing articles and reviews supporting his films. I was among the first voices to publicly call for Warner to hire Snyder to oversee their DC movies, a drum I started beating before Man of Steel released, based on my love of Watchmen and promotional material would sing for Man of Steel, as well as my broader appreciation for his films and his perspective on DC characters. I aggressively defended Batman v Superman as a great superhero film, and I will do so until my dying day. I opposed Snyder's departure from the DCEU. I wrote multiple articles defending his approach and criticising the studio's leadership's handling of the whole situation. As a result of my support for Snyder's work and my willingness to stick to my defence of his vision and my criticism of how he was treated, I am regularly called a shill or a fanboy by various fans and film folks who assume anyone with opinions that are different from them must have ulterior motives and be shills. So I will always happily defend my work and my position supporting Snyder's filmmaking, while also being eager to admit when I was wrong, namely about whether the Snyder Cut existed as a nearly finished version of Justice League. Anyway, timing for the releasing of the Snyder Cut is about to be perfect, or relatively perfect, since the perfect timing would have been the original theatrical window. But this is about moving forward in the best possible way now. I've said for quite a while now that HBO Max would benefit from exclusively streaming Snyder's version of Justice League, providing content not available anywhere else and appealing to a sizable audience who would subscribe to HBO Max just to gain access to the Snyder Cut. Incoming Warner CEO Ann Sarnoff could use this as an olive branch to fans who have been upset by the previous studio leadership, and as an olive branch to Zack Snyder himself as well. And this is a no-lose scenario for Warner Brothers, since they'd reap benefits from the release, while any negative sentiment will fall upon the past administration. Exactly, I've always said this. If Snyder's cut is indeed superior to the theatrical cut of Justice League, then it not only deserves to be seen, but it also would generate positive coverage and happiness among Warner's DC fans, and it would provide the closure for the previous iteration of that DCEU world. It would also generate revenue on DVD, Blu-ray, digital HD after initial HBO box office release. Heck, Warner Brothers could even do a one-weekend only theatrical release in a few cities to create additional promotional coverage and revenue if the HBO Max release goes well enough. If on the other hand the Snyder Cut turned out unsatisfying and inferior, or merely equal to the theatrical version of Justice League, then there's not really a downside for the studio. The film's theatrical release already failed. There is already a great deal of attention and coverage about the Snyder Cut. The talk of the Snyder Cut is not going to just go away and will remain even as new future DC movies are released. And bad reactions to another cut of Justice League isn't going to hurt future films if those films are good. Bad reactions could merely be dismissed as more of the same, and as confirming that no version of the film was going to be a hit in theatres. Mind you, I'm not endorsing any of those particular points or options. If the film got negative reviews from critics and audiences, I'm merely noting that bad reviews for the Snyder Cut would not really be problematic for Warner, and certainly wouldn't overshadow the upsides of releasing it on HBO Max. When the pros and cons weighed alongside each other, I think the benefits objectively matter far more than the potential downsides, and that any downsides can easily be spun in the studio's favour. Those who claim fans would not be satisfied and that releasing the Snyder Cut would send a bad message, i.e. that the pressure from fan-based protests and activism can lead studios to capitulate, are ignoring the fact fans do this sort of campaigning all the time, regardless of whether it works or not, and that a great deal of that time, in fact, encourage fans and audiences to engage in such campaigns to influence studios when the outcome is something those folks happen to agree with. And again, the behaviour of some fans is not a legitimate reason to lock away a filmmaker's work or to oppose releasing it, so I wish we could separate the two things when trying to discuss the topic. If anyone has a legitimate reason to personally oppose releasing the Snyder Cut based on the merits of the film and filmmaking process itself, I've yet to hear it. And again, the claim that it will take a large amount of money, or any money really, to get the cut into shape for viewing is simply false. So that doesn't hold up as a legitimate reason to oppose the release. It's a new day for Warner, with new leadership and new path forward. They have upcoming streaming service that will benefit from lots of exclusive and buzz-generating content. They have an ongoing run of DC movies that have earned good critical reviews, enormous box office success, and a slate of new films in the coming years. That's likely to continue those positive trends. Releasing the Snyder Cut would signal a new relationship between studio leadership and a big segment of fandom, would give additional boost to HBO Max, and would require little or additional work or spending on the film, would put the entire controversy to rest at last, and would honour the vision and work of Zack Snyder after he put so much of his time, heart and soul into building a DC cinematic world for the studio and fans. I'd even argue, since Warner is continuing production on several projects that are holdovers from the past DCEU iteration and with the completed films releasing next year, that serves as a continuation of aspects of the previous DCEU. The Snyder Cut can also serve as a sort of added promotion for those films in a way that reaches out to a specific segment of fans without intruding on other promotion of those future films. The Snyder Cut would fit perfectly into the launch of HBO Max. HBO Max is bringing a large, more definitive Warner Brothers content library to viewers. It's going to offer lots of other past superhero movies from different eras and different incarnations of characters. If those films aren't problematic for the future of DC movies, then the Snyder Cut isn't a problem either. The bottom line is this: the Snyder Cut deserves to be seen, and releasing it is the right thing to do. I hope AT&T and Warner Brothers realise this and decide to release the Snyder Cut. Since HBO Max provides a way to do so, that would make just about everyone happy and offer plenty of upside for the studio and their streaming service. Mark Hughes, wow, the guy who blocked me 2 years ago. That's a really good article, and I must apologise because this morning on the DCEU Daily, I just accused you of jumping on a bandwagon. I was absolutely wrong, and I apologise. That is a brilliant article. I think he wrote this article before the Variety article came out. That certainly doesn't seem to be a reply to that article, but it seems to be a reply to many, many things that have been said. The lie that it doesn't exist. The lie that it would cost too much to finish it. And Mark comes up with so many reasons why there's more positives than negatives to release this cut. I think the swerve of trends for release the Snyder Cut, the logic of releasing it, and you've got Warner Brothers right now who have, well, whether they were involved in the Variety hit piece, it's affecting them. Again, they've been made to look stupid. There is only one way out, Warner Brothers, and that is to release the Snyder Cut. And if you don't, we will continue hashtagging and saying stuff about release the Snyder Cut. You are never going to get rid of this. You are never going to stop the stench of this stink. So you may as well just release the cut so we can all move on. This is not about power to the people. This is not about a bunch of people bullying a studio. This is about something that was so wrong being done, and you, Warner Brothers, having the power to correct it.